The BBC is responding to complaints that its coverage of the Princess of Wales' cancer diagnosis was excessive and insensitive. Our royal insider, Patricia Treble, joins us with the latest on that. And Patricia, wasn't it the BBC who produced the video?
Yep.
With the princess?
It was BBC Studios, which is separate from the news division that produced the video, because remember the fuss with the photo. The royals didn't want to take any chances, so they had the BBC produce it. But look, BBC coverage, like all coverage, was wall-to-wall, right? This was just massive news because it was coming after all those crazy conspiracy theories. And yes, more than 100 people have complained, saying basically TMI. It was just too much. This is kind of standard, I'm going to say. So people have complained when Prince Philip died, they complained too much coverage. When the Queen died, complained too much coverage. I will say a lot of news, it was blanket coverage, but I think it's over. You know, it was kind of a one-day thing and then it was over. But you have to take these things very seriously. And you're always, as a news organization, you're always reevaluating, you know, how much coverage did you pay to something. And what they have said is they said, look, we didn't delve into areas that clearly were private, you know, what type of cancer it was. And so I think they're kind of shrugging it off, to be honest.
So it wasn't an issue of the quality of the coverage,
no.
It was the quantity.
It was the quantity and the fact that what people themed was intrusive. Because, of course, this is her personal health, but it is a video about her health. So hard to balance that.
Meanwhile, they may have moved on to a different phase of that coverage, but Kate is still sort of reeling and dealing with the fact that her family's party planning business is on the rocks. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this has been a long time coming. Her parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, they built this out of completely nothing. It was a massive concern. And then the pandemic hit, lockdowns hit, and it just got absolutely walloped. Was really reeling with debt. They were able to sell it last year for, you know, not much. It wasn't enough to save it. And so now even the company that is dealing with the windup of the firm is not being paid its fees. And it's kind of a sorry end to what was an incredibly large business that they started in their house. Wow. And which really financed, you know, their life. I mean, this was their life for decades. But I mean, the pandemic has really taken a toll on all businesses.
For sure. Meghan, we've seen Meghan pop up recently.
We have. She had a day in Los Angeles. So she was hosting a black art event at an art gallery in Los Angeles, which was wonderful. Took her mom along. And Harry, of course, but took her mom, which I think is fun. I always like it when famous people take their moms a lot, you know. And Doria Ragland was meeting with Tina Knowles, who's, of course, the mother of Beyonce. So I think you've got a Moms of Famous People club kind of happening. And also that day, Meghan was reading to kids at a children's hospital. So a full day for them.
And we were talking at the beginning of this show about the opening up of these palaces, He's casting a wider net, trying to bring people into the royal family at Balmoral. Yes.
Thank you.
Not Sandringham. But for those royal watchers who are hoping that they're going to be able to get closer to sort of the intimate lives of royals, they're going to be disappointed.
So I've got good news and I've got bad news. The bad news first is that if you wanted to get that tour, which is the first ever tour inside Balmoral Castle in Scotland, completely sold out. Sold out in 24 hours, the tickets. But coming on Wednesday, there are going to be a new tour opening up for Buckingham Palace, which has its summer opening season. So it's open over at least 2 months in the summer. They're opening the east wing of the palace. Now, this is the balcony wing, the most famous side of the palace. It's normally off limits because it's a working area, but they just finished the massive renovation in that area. And so they're opening the rooms. And I'm going to be honest, this is the one I would love to see because it is completely over the top. The rooms there are absolutely crazy design. And it's because 100 years ago, Queen Mary went down into the royal storerooms and found all this stuff. And she was redesigning everything. And she said, let's bring it all up and show it all off. And they plunked it all in the East Wing. I kind of like that.
That's fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we let you go, we also have to talk about what's come out on Netflix.
Scoop. Yep. So this is what I've been waiting for. So this was the drama. It was of the BBC interview. A lot of BBC today. The BBC interview with Prince Andrew, which basically destroyed him. He had to retire from public life after it. It is, I've been wondering how good it was. It is very, very good. It's a kind of an inside media peek at how they got the interview, and also kind of what Prince Andrew and his people were thinking when they did the interview, because it was, for him, a complete disaster.
Right.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, you would think that with sort of the layers and layers of people and the institutional protection that
My God.
from being part of the royal family, that it would never get as far as that interview. No. And yet we saw the results of it.
It did. Yeah, and what you really see is he has no remorse for his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He had no sympathy for the victims. And it's just this self-absorption. He was just in his own little world, and that, unfortunately, is now the world he has.
We're going to have to leave it there. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.